My name is Neely. I was in the U.S. Navy, and I finished my enlistment as an E5, a second-class petty officer. I decided to enlist in the summer of 2001, and I left for boot camp rather in the fall of 2001, on October 25th, 2001. So from there, I went to boot camp at Great Lakes in Chicago, Illinois, and I spent 8 weeks at boot camp doing basic training. From basic training, I went to Charleston, South Carolina for my first A school, where I had basic training in electrical theory and basic mechanical theory as a nuclear operator. From there, I stayed on and went through nuclear power school in Charleston for the next 6 months. Following that, I had my training in Ballston Spa, New York at a nuclear power prototype, and so I completed all of my training within a year and a half. From there, I went to the fleet, and that was in Norfolk, Virginia. I was assigned to the USS Enterprise, and the Enterprise, I spent about 4 years assigned to the Enterprise, and I completed my enlistment there in 2007 while on my second deployment. I was deployed twice. My first deployment was in 2006. It was a 7-month deployment, and we spent a lot of that time in the Mediterranean, but also the majority of that time was spent doing combat operations in the Middle East, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. My second deployment was the following year in 2007. The same missions. It was part of the what was called the Surge. So it was an increased troop levels, increased military support. So it was a second deployment, doing the same thing, essentially supporting Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And that was essentially where my enlistment ended. So for a total of 6 years, my enlistment began in 2001 and ended in 2007. One particular moment, I had a lot of great experiences. So just something kind of positive or fun and exciting that I can remember, just because it had a lot of ups and downs. But one particular moment just that stands out as fun and exciting was an opportunity to do what was called a swim call. So what this allowed sailors and Marines to do was essentially have a lot of fun. We had kind of a day off on this particular day, a Steel Beach picnic as it was called, and we got to actually jump off of the elevator of the aircraft carrier into the water, which was pretty cool. There were Navy SEALs and there were Navy divers in the water, both as our lifeguards and on shark watch. So they had their machine guns looking out for any sharks that could have potentially been in the water. But that was just an experience that was pretty fun. Again, there were a lot of moments that were tense, stressful, but that was one that was just kind of fun. It was enjoyable. I just decided to join for several reasons. I guess one, basically, a patriotic duty. I always felt the need or the desire to serve in some way. I also was looking for direction. As a 21-year-old, I just decided that college wasn't going very well for me, so I needed some direction, and I saw this as an opportunity as well to do my enlistment and perhaps use the GI Bill after my enlistment to go back to school and finish school. Basic training, so it was a surprise. I had nothing. I had no idea really, other than talking to my recruiter, what it was going to be like. The day-to-day, I kind of understood, but I would say the kind of the emotional overall impact was stressful. But at the same time, I made a lot of good friends, and but basic training lasted, I believe it was 9 weeks. So I was there from near the end of October through early January. So I missed the holidays, I missed my birthday, so that was kind of a downer. Other than that, it was a decent experience. Physically, it was pretty demanding. So considering I felt like I was going into boot camp in pretty decent shape, it wasn't too bad. But you know, we certainly had moments where it was physically strenuous. Again, I made a lot of good friends, learned a lot in a very short amount of time, and overall, it went by quickly, I would say. It went by very quickly. Transitioning from civilian life to military life, I would say it went from highly unstructured to highly structured, and I think that's one of the big things that occurs. Essentially, you go from being a young man, you know, I was living on my own at the time, so being a young man with, you know, all the freedom in the world, doing whatever, you know, I chose. I was going to college at the time, living on my own, to going from the military life where you have to be, you know, your leadership knows where you are at all times, and you have to be at a specific place at a specific time doing a specific thing, whatever those orders are. So the transition was very structured as far as the transition goes. There were some challenges for sure making the transition. Again, a lot of new challenges, new expectations, meeting new people, traveling to new places, and the training was all very, very new. Going through, which was a very lengthy training process, so the actual training took about 1.5 years, and I was actually on hold for 6 months while I waited for my secret security clearance. So once I had the training, I was assigned to the aircraft carrier, and I was assigned as a reactor electrician. So anything that was electrical connected to reactor power in the reactor plant, it was my job to maintain, to fix, repair, and operate. I also acted as a shutdown reactor operator while we were in port and the reactor plant was shut down. But primarily my job as a reactor electrician was maintenance, again, standing watch. That was a big part of my job as well, making sure that the plant stayed up and running, that everything that needed electrical power had it, and that was being maintained. So that was my primary duty. Military service has impacted my life in a lot of ways. One of the first benefits that I gained from serving in the military was the GI Bill, and it became known as the post 9/11 GI Bill. So it was something that afforded me to go to college. It supported me financially for housing, supported me for textbooks, and all the things that a normal college student would need to get through school. So there's the financial gain of how it affected me. Military also gave me discipline. You probably hear that a lot. Also gave me some structure and some purpose and some meaning in life, big picture. It kind of reinforced my desire to serve, and that's kind of why I've also decided to become a teacher, to continue serving. So those are some of the key things. It's also affected me in terms of, you know, the desire to travel. That was one opportunity that I got in the military. Being on a naval ship, we got to travel and stop at a lot of different countries. Also forming friendships with a lot of people from all over the country. So that's kind of opened my eyes as well, and it's definitely had a big impact on the way I viewed the world before I enlisted to the way I view the world and people now since my time in the military.